of training, a 90-question exam, and 60 hours of apprenticeship aboard regular trains, right? So this guy's has done a little bit less training here.
He was close. 2 hours, 60 hours.
Needs to do
say?
that 90-question exam, I think.
You pick up most of it right at the beginning anyway.
Multiple choice. I answered all C all the way down. All right, good. Got him on the train. So Luciano's shift on November 1st began at 5 a.m. and ended at 4:30 p.m., right? That's doing his regular work as shift manager, right? And at 4:30 p.m., he was offered a $20 bonus to take a rush hour train from Kings Highway, which is down here.
Which
right?
Kings Highway? There's a lot of them.
Oh, right. There are multiple Kings Highways, aren't there?
Dollar inflation calculator.
This is a mean trick that they play. There's 3 Kings Highways there. You got one more on the Sea Beach line. Yeah.
1918, I bribed a guy $20. Calculate. $359.86.
Damn, I'll take that.
Yeah, deal.
Sold.
So I'm gonna hazard a guess that it's not the Kings Highway on the Sea Beach line because I don't know if that was built yet. So it might have been on the Culver line or the Brighton Beach line.
I would guess Culver, knowing what we know now, but not 100% sure.
So either way, he's taking it up either the Culver line or the Brighton Beach line over to Park Row Terminal here in Manhattan over the Brooklyn Bridge. And then he's going to come back, right? He's going to go up the Fulton Street L. He's going to go down
one of these
Prospect
fucky
Park,
routes.
And then he's going to go over to, I believe, Coney Island Terminal. So Luciano's like, hell yeah, that's $359 $2021.
Yeah, I could buy an Xbox.
A 1918 Xbox. A set of fancy playing cards.
Gather around, kids, for multiplayer ball in a cup. Ball in a cup. Ball in a cup.
Hoop and stick.
Yes.
Maybe it's a pack of all of those.
And a pack of smokes.
Or just the stick and the hoop is DLC.
I hate having to sign up for Hoop and Stick Live.
Hey, kids, you want a hoop and a stick and a pack of cigs?
Wow, sure, Mr. Rosniak.
That'll be $359
and 86 cents. And 2 hard-boiled eggs.
All right, let's look at the equipment he's using for this. Okay, so the only thing that rivaled the chaos and pandemonium of the operating scheme of the old New York City L's was the equipment. Yet dozens of different types of cars by dozens of manufacturers. Some of them had open platforms, like this guy right here. I took this picture in 2019.
Yep, I was there.
Yeah, Jay was there. They still run these things on occasion.
Unlike historic runs, not regular service.
I was about to ask. Yeah,
because they don't have enough balls to do that.
Riding outside though, incredible.
Highly
recommended if you can do it.
It's great. You can just ride out on the open platforms. You know, the best way to ride the subway is with a lot of fresh air. Some of them had open platforms like this. Some of them were enclosed with automatic doors. Some of them rode especially close to the ground because passengers were afraid the trains might tip over on the earliest L's. Some of them were powered cars. Some of them were unpowered trailers. Some of them were actually entirely open to the elements. Like they had like just slats instead of windows, right?
Hell yeah.
The main characteristic that united all these cars is they were made of wood.
It's a fine material. What's wrong with craftsmanship?
So Luciano had almost no experience running trains, and eyewitness accounts said that it showed, right? They reported lots of jerky starts and stops. He Again, I've ridden on these cars that when operated well, they're pretty jerky. So I don't know what an especially jerky start and stop
Get
on these
thrown halfway out of the window.
He kept overshooting platforms. He missed a few station stops entirely. Just sort of gave
just
up and kept
racking
going.
up those train sim penalties in the bottom right
less,
corner.
Less dwell times. Less dwell times.
Yes.
He's that much closer to making his $20 if he skips those couple stops.
That's right.
Got to say, yeah. This is the highest paid subway operator on the entire system.
And he was finishing up. He was coming off a 12-hour shift too. I wouldn't.
Yes.
I'd be missing some stops. 12 hours of scabbing.
Yeah.
12 hours of scabbing, having to pretend that you don't have an Italian accent the whole time. That's hard work. 12 hours, not just of like scabbing, but scabbing in a sort of Don Draper way.
He's actually trying to do a Swedish accent.
I'm Jorgen train eternal. I'm Swedish. Don't get mad at me.
One confirmed instance of speeding when he just came off the Brooklyn Bridge at Sand Street Station. Hold on. He made it to Park Row, the Park Row terminal on the other side of the Brooklyn Bridge in Manhattan. He took on passengers there who were bound home because it's the evening rush hour, right?
Sure.
And proceeded down the Fulton Street L to the Franklin Avenue line. So this is the Fulton Street L. This is the Franklin Avenue line here, right? When he got to the Franklin Avenue stop, he actually overshot the platform and then continued down the Franklin Avenue L.
As
or
you
the
do.
Fulton Avenue L, Fulton Street, whatever it's called.
New York's confusing.
He had to back up and then go down the right line. He's got some mitigating circumstances here besides the fact he just came off an 11.5 hour shift. He was also recovering from the Spanish flu.
Don't spit.
Yes.
Don't spit.
He was also grieving his daughter who had just died of the Spanish flu.
Oh,
don't spit.
Yeah. This guy's a bit of a wreck at this particular point in time, right? And his train was composed improperly, right? So this train was 5 cars long. It was a motor car and then 2 trailer cars and then 2 motor cars, right? This meant it was heavy in the back. Ordinarily, when you were, because the motor cars weighed about twice as much as the trailer cars, right? Usually
I was going to say, importantly, the weight was lower because the wheels were the heavy part of a motor car.
Yes. Yeah, and usually the practice was you would alternate motor and trailer cars. This one was not put together right. One source I looked at speculated it was put together wrong because of some scab switchman in a yard. I'm not sure if that's accurate. I think this may have just been
It was like
someone
also
screwed
recovering from the Spanish flu.
Yeah.
Yes.
How many of these fucking things are we going to have post-COVID, if there ever is a post-COVID, where it's just like, oh yeah, this guy's like crashed,
brain fogged to hell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we probably will have. This was exacerbated by a strike, and we don't have unions anymore, so I guess it probably won't
That's a
happen.
good point.
Yeah, we've completely broken labor, thereby
As
increasing
a safety measure. Yes.
Okay, so now we have to talk about Prospect Park Station, right?
Looks nice.
Yes,
It is nice.
It's
It's
okay.
nice. Oh, negative Nancy.
Oh, you
Liam,
can see the screens I designed there on the left.
Ooh.
Yes,
Liam,
Ross.
you didn't think it was nice when we were there.
Was I tired? Was I being a little bitch baby?
Yes.
Oh,
Because we were because
what,
we
Jay?
were gonna be
What, Jay?
Nothing. I didn't say anything.
All right. So in 1918, Prospect Park was sort of a newly finished station, right? Not entirely finished, but had been reconfigured, right? Because the dual contracts were underway, and they were building a new subway underneath What's It Street, Flatbush Avenue.
Flatbush.
Yes. Previously, the Brighton Beach line had continued sort of directly onto the Franklin Avenue L. Right. it had been reconfigured so that the Brighton Beach line, which is now 4 tracks, the outer track would go onto the L and the inner track would go into the subway, right? Now, in the future, only elevated trains would go on the Franklin Avenue L, and the new subway trains would go into the subway. And that's why they didn't configure this line with particularly great curve geometry. You can see as you come in to Prospect Park, you take this reverse curve.
Oh,
right?
it's a bit weird. Yeah.
Yeah, and a reverse curve is how you say S curve, but make it sound more technical.
Yeah, you have to navigate this track in the shape of the cool S.
Yes.
This legend is it's modern stuff. Every track you can see here was in service back in the day when the Franklin Avenue L actually connected to something.
Wait, so okay, so every track. Wait, how does this?
On the legend, just like non-revenue track, whatever. That's modern. You'd use both sides.
I see.
On the original one, so you'd have trains coming from.
I see this legend. All right.
Yeah, you thought? Did he think he meant like a literal like urban legend?
I thought there was an urban legend that I wasn't aware of.
Think about the Will Smith movie I Am Legend.
Yeah, so you'd have it, and it was, this is now a permanent kind of fucked up part of the subway because you have 4 tracks of local and express service that have to squish down to 2 tracks because the local tracks turn off to become the Franklin shuttle.
Yes.
So
yeah, Liam, that was why you were mad, because we had just come down here on a train I didn't know was diverted, and then we had to take the Franklin Avenue shuttle back up.
Hey, the shuttle rules.
I thought it was going to be quicker, but it wasn't.
Oh, that's right. That's okay. Yeah. We were there recently. I was getting our New York City trips confused.
Yes.
Nah, the shuttle's great, but it's you end up a lot of the time if you're coming from Coney Island and you get the express train, you wait for it, you transfer whatever, and you go shooting up past the local train, and then it passes you at Prospect Park, before you go in.
You feel like a real douche.
Great, thanks, cool. Love this express train that gets held up behind the local.
That's
dumb.
A bizarre way to operate.
It's dumb. Anyway.
But, go ahead.
No, I was going to say anyway, back to you.
Yes, okay.
Just trying to make this nice and smooth.
Yes.
Well, it has never been that. We will never edit anything out or in.
Well, you know what was not smooth was this curve. It was limited to 6 miles an hour.
Oh, that's baby soft.
Yes. So Luciano had never driven this part of the line before, right? Leading into the 6 mile an hour curve was a steep downward grade as the Franklin Street L descended into a tunnel, right? Now Luciano approached the grade with his packed rush hour train with only the faintest knowledge of what lied ahead.
And this man is also a zombie at this point, as we've established.
For at least 12 hours, probably longer than that.
He doesn't even know what accent he's pretending to do anymore.
Yeah, he slipped into Irish. People have started discriminating against him again. Now there's so Luciano sees, the curve, or maybe he doesn't. We don't know exactly what happened at this point. There's a difference of opinion here. Luciano claimed at this point he lost control of the train, but forensic investigation determined the brakes were not applied at all. At any rate, the train did not slow down for the 6 mile an hour curve.
My man was asleep at this point.
Probably.
Yeah, I was going to say, but dude's asleep. Dude's out.
He was just dreaming about the sweet hoop and stick he was going to play later with his bonus.
Actually, you didn't have like a seat for these, for most of them, right?
No,
like
you stood
had to stand.
You stand in there,
You still only get like a little half seat.
Sucks.
You can fall asleep standing up.
Oh, yeah. That's
People
just what I'm thinking.
fall asleep standing up, can't they, Roz?
It's true. Yes, I have done that.
I've watched you do it dozens of times.
Every night, like a horse.
Yeah. It's actually incredible. He just starts eating oats out of nowhere. Sometimes Roz gets spooked, and that's why the podcast gets delayed. He's just kicking his PC in the middle of the night. Nay, I don't want to edit. Nay.
So he plunged into the tunnel at very high speed, reported by some eyewitnesses as 70 miles per hour, but more
Was it
likely
actually?
closer to
Oh,
30.
damn.
Nobody knew how to estimate speed back then.
Good point, yeah. And this is not a good speed to enter a 6 mile an hour curve in.
Terrain.
Terrain.
Pull up.
Pull. So the first car with Luciano in it left the rails, but it remained mostly intact. It also severed the third rail, which cut off power to, the system in the local area, right? The fourth and fifth cars. So here's the first car. The fourth and fifth cars are back here. They both also remained mostly intact. I believe the fifth car was totally undamaged. The second and third cars, which were the trailer cars, they didn't fare quite as well.
I see that on the diagram where they have been smushed.
They've been smushed, yeah.
You generally don't want to see a diagram where you have to draw a train with a very squiggly line.
Yes. They hit the wall up here where the reverse curve transitions, right? And they just sort of scrape along the inner wall as they're being pulled forward by momentum, right? Now, the wall here was studded with steel beams, right? You can see them poking out, right? So those are just shredding the wooden walls of the cars, right? And the wood just starts splintering. There's shattered glass everywhere, right? And the splinters then, impaled the passengers who were next to them, right?
And this well before safety glass. So we're talking about danger glass.
Danger glass, yes. So the whole side of the second and third cars was sheared off, and then there were passengers flung by centrifugal force directly into the mass of bodies and splinters. Right.
Jesus.
No, thank you.
Now, since the third rail was shut off, there was no lights in any of the trains anymore. All the lights went out. And the New York Tribune reported at this point that the train caught fire, but looking from the photographs, it doesn't really look like it actually caught fire.
No, I don't want to say it looks fine, but it's not like compare it to the Catherine
arguably
tunnel
could be
fire.
worse.
It could be a lot more.
It's made of wood,
burned.
for fuck's sake, too.
It's really surprising it didn't catch fire.
Yeah, for real.
Do they have like gas lighting on these by any chance?
By that time, I think it was electric.
I think it was electric, yeah. Yeah, I don't think they even had like gas heaters on there.
Yeah, no, it was not. They weren't meant for nice long trips.
Yeah, exactly. So first responders who came to the scene reported, they went down in the tunnel and found a solid mass of debris and splinters and impaled bodies.
Jesus wept.
Just a mulch of subway car.
Yeah.
There was no light whatsoever in the tunnel. So they actually went and commandeered some private automobiles in the area and just drove them down there and turned the headlights on.
Jesus fuck.
Now, Luciano, our motorman, was completely unhurt and just sort of climbed out of the cab of the train.
I should laugh, but of course he was.
Yeah. It's a special providence that protects drunkards, idiots, children, and the United States of America, as Otto von Bismarck once said.
One of the passengers in the first car was like, "Hey, what happened?" And he responded, "I don't know. I lost control of the damn thing. That's all." Then he walked to the Prospect Park.
He fell back asleep.
No, he walked to the Prospect Park platform, walked up the stairs, and took the trolley home. he just left.
Good.
Hit the bricks.
Hit the bricks. You can just leave.
Causing a train accident? You can leave. You can just leave. Yeah, that's powerful scab vibes.
Yes.
Like, I don't know.
I wonder what that night was like for him.
But he was playing hoop and stick the whole time. Was the
But I don't
thing.
think he made it back to collect his money. So, like, consider the past couple days, he has lost his job, killed a trainload of people, lost his daughter,
Yes,
and lost his 1918 Xbox.
They seized
the
stick and
dream
ball
of-
from him.
It's a pretty bad day to be this guy.
That's why you shouldn't cross a picket line.
I bet
that's true.
He fell asleep the moment he got home because he's just fucking exhausted.
Yeah.
All right, so in the course of your subway car being reduced to a bunch of
Pulp.
Soup-like homogenous.
very sharp pulp.
Spicy pulp.
Yeah, I was about to say this is not some a pulp would be a lot less harmful than just getting a splintered 2x4 like just impaled through your stomach, right? So 93 passengers were killed and 250 were injured, right?
That's a lot.
I mean, this is a packed rush hour train.
Yes. And there was another issue, which was Spanish flu.
Don't spit.
Which meant all of the hospitals were full.
Do not spit.
Don't, yeah. So a lot of, I think they wound up having to open up Ebbets Field as a makeshift hospital.
They did.
Yeah.
Man, if there's one adjective you never want to hear applied to a hospital.
Makeshift.
Makeshift, yeah. Ebbets was where the Dodgers played, right?
Ebbets was, and it was like a block away from this place too.
Well, that's convenient.
Yeah, no, it was very close. I mean, if you're going to have to open up a sports stadium for a makeshift hospital, like Prospect Park kind of was the de facto station for Dodger fans. Sort of helps.
Yeah, picked a good spot for it.
Yeah, right. If you're going to throw a train into a tunnel wall like this, that's about as good as you can get.
Because I think there was also a nearby hospital, but that one was very definitively full of Spanish flu patients.
Probably.
So, this is a catastrophe, right? And word got out that this accident had occurred to the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers, and they called off the strike. So I guess in his position as strikebreaker, Luciano was very successful.
More value for money than the Pinkertons because you don't even have to pay him.
Yeah, I was about to say, maybe
the Pinkertons are going to want their like hoop and stick that you promised them, but this guy, you can just fire him.
You can just fire him, yeah.
The Pinkertons have a hoop and stick that also manages to shoot miners. Capitalism breeds innovation.
Yes. The hoop, the stick is also a gun. It's a boomstick.
Terrible.
All right. So what results from this? Good news. Jay wrote this slide, so I don't have to do anything.
All right. So we're going to kind of rewind a little bit because there's some fun backstory with this. As you can see, again, we've got our train helpfully marked out of service just in case.
Blue flagged. Do not move.
But this equipment locked and tagged out.
What if it just showed up at the platform like they expected?
I bet people would get on.
Probably, yeah. I probably would do it.
having ridden, I mean, it's definitely not the exact same thing, but having ridden like work trains or museum trains and things out of service, the number of people who just are completely blinders on and will just, the second that something that's not the platform, not the tracks appears on the tracks, they'll just walk straight into it.
They should just make the only thing that really repels people is a really smelly car.
Yep.
You can sit through anything for 10 minutes.
So when we go back, the mayor of New York at the time was John Hylan, who now famous for Highland Boulevard in Staten Island, which I know of because it's a lot of bus stuff there. So I had to make a lot of crap that said Highland Boulevard was, blocked or construction or something. But he was a big Tammany Hall guy and, a big anti-big business guy. He was not a big fan of the Rockefellers or the Carnegies or, these private elevated and subway operators. Hilariously, maybe not hilariously, I don't know. But he got his start working in New York City for the BRT, coincidentally. And he literally, so this will also show you kind of their track engineering. Um, he got his job at the BRT by showing up in Brooklyn one day, climbing up the elevated structure, and talking to somebody who was standing up there. He just climbed up the pillar and said, "Hi, can I have a job?" And they gave him a job. He
Nice.
started the next day laying track.
Wow.
Wow.
That's efficient. That's impressive.
Right? It's sort of nuts. But he genuinely
Boomers
kind
still
of
think you can do that.
Yeah.
just climbed the elevator.
That's actually how
Just
Jay
climb-
got his job.
That's not super far off.
He drew on a guy's face and said, "Give me a job or it's not coming off."
But he worked his way up to being, a conductor, an engineer, and well, conductor, something else, and then an engineer. But that was sort of his kind of end goal almost of all of this. He's like, I'm going to be an engineer, collect $100 a month paycheck or whatever. That's fine. I can,
Yeah, one
buy
month
my
I get
house
the
in
hoop,
Brooklyn for
next
that.
month I get the stick.
Exactly. You do have to get it in installments. You can't just get them all at once with $100 a month. But anyway,
Well, I mean, you got to think, driving the L is, basically like having a train simulator today.
he's just playing Densha Day Go
Yes.
full time. And it's all line of sight, which means it's basically how I play Train Simulator.
Yeah.
And Luciano oversped at a curve and flung the train off the tracks, which is actually exactly how I play Train Simulator.
Hard save.
Yeah. You got to turn derailments off. It helps a lot.
Thanks, Ross.
It does. I miss you. Did you guys ever download that old roller coaster track for original Train Simulator?
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
I got that,
No.
and I managed to get the roller coaster track, and I was living outside of Boston, so I got MBTA trains and just took MBTA trains on this insane looping roller coaster.
That's fucking awesome, dude.
Oh yeah,
It's hilarious.
that was a good one.
What's hilarious is 90% of the train people, capital train, capital people, by the way, that I talk to now that are around my age will remember that same roller coaster map. It was just it's a cultural touchstone.
I'm sure
We're
my
like pretty
a
experience.
deeply diseased group of people.
All of the tracks, they were so distorted that they just turned into two lines.
It was just two lines, red ties, every 200 feet.
Yeah. I was like the Sea View map. That was fun.
I downloaded, all these broken super acceleration things, and I found out on the vanilla Japan map there was some starting location and terminal that if you just punched it, you'd go flying off a jump ramp at the end of the world. So I just did that a lot and just sent Dash 9s full of intermodal trains, just careening off this jump.
This is the problem. The problem with the train simulator world, the train simulator genre as a whole, is they're just not as good at derailments as they should be.
Yeah, when are we going to get BeamNG physics, but train simulator?
Imagine being the train company or the train manufacturer that agrees to hand over that data.
You just have to make your own fake ones like they do for BeamNG, right?
Yeah, you just
this is not a ACS 64. This is
a BCS 128.
Yeah,
perfect. Ship it.
Any similarities are purely coincidental.
Stop no resemblance is intended to any living persons, alive or dead.
Weird. It's the Onion Pacific.
Yes.
Anyway, so John Hyland had basically kind of achieved his life goal of being an engineer with a steady income, and his wife, who'd moved down, suggested he should maybe start trying out law school stuff. So he did, and shortly before,
wait a minute, am I right?
You should climb up City Hall and demand a job, and they made him the mayor.
But he was about to take the bar.
He's like Godzilla.
This was the only way you could get any job in 1918 was to climb the structure
to the top of the
where
job.
it happened, and you demanded a job.
Climb the corporate ladder.
That's all King Kong was trying to do, was to get hired.
I said Godzilla. I meant King Kong.
Do you guys have an opening in the sanitation department as you're just flinging shit off roofs?
So, unfortunately for John Hyland, just before you're supposed to take the bar exam, he got his ass fired by the BRT because a supervisor almost caused an accident with his train.
My man did nothing wrong.
Yeah, well, he made the critical mistake of not outranking the guy who almost caused the accident.
Wasn't Hyland also reading law books while driving the train, though?
I didn't read about
that's
that.
called multitasking, Ron.
So many of my interests collide.
So he claimed that it was not his supervisor's fault, but that meant he was not a big fan of the BRT. And additionally, when he was an engineer, it meant that he was a member of the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers. So he is a union guy who does not like the company, and all of a sudden, scabs for his old union going on strike just destroyed a train belonging to this company he was not a huge fan of. So he threw the book at them.
Hell yes.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
So he went and he took the BRT to court. He tried Luciano and the executives of the BRT for manslaughter.
That rules.
The fun fact of this, this was such a high-profile case that John Hyland went and they had to figure out where can we go that like we can get a fair jury. So they took the court all the way to Mineola, Long Island, which is less than 20 miles from the wreck. That was as far as they could go. So,
but it was like they couldn't get a fair trial in the city because everyone was calling for the executives' heads.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Literally calling and saying that they should be brought out into the street and shot. So they brought it 20 miles away,
it was a
where
better
apparently
time in many ways.
Apparently, news hadn't spread 20 miles by the time they managed to get the trial done. But anyway, they're all acquitted.
It's like when you want to put cops on trial, or when you have to put cops on trial, so you go to like the cop suburb. You just go to like the railroad suburb.
Yeah, the system works. And Luciano and all the execs were acquitted. Great.
I think Luciano went on to become a developer in Queens.
He did.
Yeah.
And he lived until like the 80s too, which is sort of crazy.
He lived to the age of 91.
Jesus.
Because a good day, young and bastards live forever. Yeah.
I think Luciano has the least amount of responsibility for this accident.
Yeah, he does. He does. No, I mean, the guy was clearly exhausted, even though he was a scab.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people do dumb shit sometimes.
Yeah, he was a scab, which is almost as bad as murder, but not a murderer.
Yeah, I was about to say he was a scab, and he never scabbed again. He merely became petty bourgeois.
Yeah, so he retired from scabbing. He quit the BRT and went and became a developer. I think he just went and developed houses in Queens or something for the rest of his life until 1985. Again, insane.
So that means, statistically, given that we're talking about developers in Queens until the 80s, that Donald Trump growing up encountered this guy.
He might have.
I love New York.
Ridiculous. But it ended up still being pretty costly for the BRT. They settled for more than $75 million, which...
$75 million in 1980.
That's a lot of hoops and sticks.
A lot of balls and sticks.
It's a lot of hoops and sticks. But that doomed the company. That sent them into receivership, which fucked them over in a pretty major way. And, you know, as these things usually happen, they just reorganized their way out of it. They absorbed a handful of more railroads. I think they had signed some big contracts with the city recently. And they became the BMT, which is why it said BMT on that map earlier. And the BMT survived until the New York City Transit took them over.
If the $75 million is pre-inflation, then they had a fine of about $2.05 billion.
Wow.
Nice. Don't do it like that anymore.
No. So what you can see here is another subway map for New York City that also doesn't show the BMT or the IRT, because that's a third subway company that didn't quite exist at the time of this wreck. But what's kind of interesting, so 2 years after this wreck, John Hyland, the mayor, pitches a third